Good morning, everyone. Hope all is good in your world. So happy Saturday. We've got a few things going on here today with ice dyeing. Hi, Sarah. Williamsburg, Virginia. Hopefully you're not in all those storm and heat and everything that's going on in the east. Good morning, Pat. I'm going to wait a little bit so we get a few more people coming on with that. So ice dyeing it with a good hot day sounds like a good thing to do, is to play with ice on that. Good morning, Lynn. So we've got both coasts, the west coast and the east coast. Hi, Kyla, Melanie, Janie. So, all right. Last week we did the alcohol ink and Sharpies, and I saw a picture on Pinterest, and so I want to share with you this t-shirt. I just gotta get that right. I went ahead and created a t-shirt. I chose not to wear it today simply because of it's white and I'm working with dyes, even though I'll have an apron on. So anyway, there's something else one can do with those Sharpies and alcohol ink. And so it was a lot of fun. I outlined them. I saw that done, and I really liked the look of the outlining on it. Otherwise, it was a little bit on the dull side. So that was a lot of fun. Hi, Jean. Kansas City. That was very close to there where I grew up, my birthplace. So, welcome. All right. This, with the dye, I want to talk a little bit about that and share with you some of the dye fabrics that I've done in the past, ones that I did this week, so that you could see what is happening with that. We're using Procyon dyes, Procyon, and those are the ones that give you that vivid, wonderful color. And there's different ways to dye, and different people have talked about that, I know, on the Quilt Show. One person that does it and does a really good job of dyeing fabrics for especially art quilts and stuff is Sandra Mullen. And I believe the last show that she did for the Quilt Show, she talked a little bit about mixing her dyes and stuff. And so you might want to go back, because those were liquid dyes, which give you a very different dye look to your fabric than what I am going to be doing today, because that was already stirred up and you get a solid color throughout your fabric in the way that she talked about that on the show. But today we're going to talk about ice dyeing, and I'm going to show you two different ways that I go about doing it. The first way, I'm going to drop the camera so that you can see this. I did a fat quarter, and I used a teal. And this is what you get when you ice dye with, they were a little bit large chunks of ice in that. And so I just want to share with you, this was teal, and I used a good amount of the dye on this to get. Now on the camera, this white space right here, it looks a lot lighter than it does here, and on at least on my screen of the computer, it looks far more blue than teal, but on my table, I can really see the teal. So this is the kind of dyeing that I am going to show you today. I really like to use this when I'm doing my slow stitching and when I'm doing landscape quilting and, you know, picture quilts, different things like this, because right in here would just be a wonderful sky, and, you know, cutting things up and moving that around to get those pictures. And then I'm going to do something different with that. I'm going to use a vase that I have, and I put those marbles in the bottom that hold the flowers kind of thing. And I'm going to scrunch up fat eighths, and I'm just using fat eighths because that was about the size of that. And so I'm going to layer it, and of course we're going to do this together. The bottom piece that I put in was the teal, and I just used teal. I didn't use a ton of it, just a little bit. And you can see these little spots and things in here. That was the dye probably not melting the entire way through with the ice, because I used a little bit. I didn't use a lot of ice, let's put it that way, because of the jar and what I was working with. But I still love it. I got some great pieces with that. Then the next layer that I put in, on top of this layer with ice, I did the yellow. And so yellow came out, and it's called dye splitting, because here you can see that I have a little bit of pink, and over here I've got little specks and bits of pink in there, because when you're mixing colors, and then it's several different dyes together, and when you put it in as a liquid form, you're going to get the color that you get, and you get a solid color of fabric. And there is no pink that pops out or anything like that, because the dyes aren't splitting with the ice movement. And so this would look extremely different if I had mixed it with the water and made a solid piece of fabric. And then on the very top, I threw in both of the teal and the yellow. So this one was soaking all the way to the bottom. The yellow layer, it went into the yellow layer, and then the yellow layer went into the green layer. And I'm going to do that with you so you know exactly what I'm talking about, because even as I'm talking, it sounds kind of confusing. This piece I adore. It's got so much wonderful stuff going on. And again, you can see where as they dyed and mixed the colors to get, I think this was another teal again that I used. I didn't use the dyes that we had in the kit because I didn't have those at that point in time. So those are the things that we're going to do today, and let's talk a little bit about what we need to have here. But first, let me go up, and we're going to talk about, Linda, I'm going to talk about that just in a minute. Lynn, I'm going to answer that question too here, but I just want to see. All right, this is so simple in your kit, and I would encourage you to do this because it is so easy to create these incredible fabrics, and that's why I have so much fun doing it. So you're going to get 5 colors in the kit from the show, and I do encourage you to buy that kit because it's a great way to start. You're going to get 5 colors, and the colors are rose wine, electric blue, spring green, ultraviolet, and straw. Great colors. Love the names. You'll get a pair of latex gloves, and you will need the gloves because it does stain the hand. It is a dye, and so you will want those. You're going to need a mask because the dye is like powder, and as you're starting to work with it and stuff, those little particles will float up, and you don't want to breathe that in. You're going to get a bag of soda ash, which I have already put into a bucket of water. You're going to get instructions for how to do this very simply, and I'm going to walk that through. They threw this in, which I thought was really nice. They show you how you can make your fabric look like spirals, bunching it up with rubber bands, pleating it, how to get your shapes to go in the direction you want it to. and how to get circles in your fabric. I'm not doing any of those today. I'm doing it very simply because right now and today and what I might be doing with this fabric, I don't need to have anything specific. But I will say that I do from time to time work with both ice dyeing and the painting of the fabric to get like sky, water, different things by bunching it in a certain way, and we'll talk about that as I get it. So the first thing that we let me walk you through the steps, and then I'm going to do the steps. I don't know if that's the best way to handle that, but it's the way I'm going to go with it, if that's okay. And so again, we're going to start with our fabric. There is a fabric that you can purchase. It's called Prepared for Dye, PDF fabric, or PFD fabric, prepared for dyeing. And then you don't really have to do much of anything with it. But if you do not have it, I like to use white fabric. You can use off-white fabrics. You can over dye fabrics that you don't like the color of, or you want a deeper color. So the fabric, I generally start with white simply because I want the colors that I'm working with to be the ones that I end up with. But every now and then I'll use an off-white or kind of a coffee stained one because I'll get a deeper, richer, that faded out old look to it, and that's kind of what I want. So that's up to you. But you're going to soak it in soda ash water. And here I've got a bucket, and in the kit they have already pre-measured. For every gallon of warm water, you put in a cup of soda ash. You can purchase soda ash on Amazon. You can actually purchase soda ash if you go to a pool place where they sell the chemicals for the pool. These are the things that you'll want to use your latex gloves for to work with, because you don't want to get this stuff on your hands or something. And then it needs to soak at least 15 minutes. So about a little bit before the show started, I had my little bucket, and in there is my soda ash water and my fabric. So it's now time to take that out and start my dye process. You're going to get a tub, and I think what I'm gonna do here is put this tub on the floor, and I'm going to wring it out, because now I'm going to put my latex gloves on in a minute. I'm going to get my fabric out of there, wring it out. I'm not going to rinse it. You do not rinse the fabric. You leave the fabric as it is. And then, but I want to set up, my next part of what I'm going to do. So the bucket's going to go to the floor. And now for my dyeing, I have this old gray tub that I now use, and it works really great. And so I'm going to set it right here. I don't have, because the camera doesn't spread a lot, and I'm going to stand up here in a second and show you exactly. Let me do that now. All right, so let me back that and get my chair out of the way. I'm going to put an apron on because I really don't want to get a mess. And I moved to this room because I have tile floor, and I won't get my painting apron. All right, let me drop you down to the table so you can see. So I have my tub, and then this was on sale at TJ Maxx. You can use a cookie drying rack, whatever. You just need to have a little space underneath so that the water, as it melts, can drip into that space. I want to get back up to the chat box, so if you have questions now. Kristen just mentioned that there are 2 half-yard pieces of fabric in the kit, and solid white and a solid aqua. So that aqua can be over-dyed, and that straw color or the violets over top of that aqua, I think would make a wonderful... So on go the gloves, because I'm going to start working with... And putting on these latex gloves is the hardest part of dyeing, in my personal opinion. I wouldn't have made, well, I would have had to practice a lot if I was a nurse or doctor, because I find it very tough. Okay, so I got my latex gloves on. Now I'm going to get... I've got 2 fat quarters of fabric to put in here. Okay, I've got one that I've rinsed out, a fat quarter, and it's been soaked in the soda ash. So let me put that there. And here's my second piece that I've simply just wrung out of with the water. Okay. So I've got my 2 pieces here, and I'm just going to take my fabric and scrunch it up. And I'm going to put this one on this side. And I'm going to put this one on this side because I'm going to do 2 different, because I've got 5 colors in my kit. And one of the things that I will say, if you get too many colors on your fabric, you get, and I apologize for the phone, I forgot to turn the sound off, but since I've got... Let me get that turned down so you don't have to hear it. I am very, very sorry about that. All right, so I'm scrunching up this fabric. And they're both scrunched a little bit differently to fit into this pan enough so that you guys can see it on camera. And I want to hold it up. Now comes the most interesting part, is that I've got my ice back here. And so this is basically ice, a bag of ice that I had gotten from the market. So some of the pieces are really big, some are not so big, and I kind of sticking stuff in between. And I want to cover my fabric with the ice. And let me talk a little bit about ice. Because the cubes that come, that cubed ice out of your refrigerator will give you a different look than crushed ice. And some refrigerators have what they call now pebble, and you can get that, and that's going to give you a different look. So the size of your ice also makes a difference in there. So I'm on this first one, I think I'm going to go with rose and yellow. I'm going to stick with warm colors on one side and cool colors on the other. And I've got plastic spoons here. Let's see if I can do this with these. This is very different doing it on camera then. And how much you sprinkle on your dye is going to make a difference of how it ends up looking when you're all done. So I've got, little bits and stuff here. And I think that's all I'm going to use on that. I'm going to stick that in that. And the one thing that I didn't show you, I had put my mask on. So just so you know, I have my mask on. But it probably will make it a little bit more difficult. Now I'm going to go to my rose wine. And what's already kind of happening here is that I've gotten a little bit of dye on my gloves. And if you have that on there and you're touching stuff, it's gonna get on there and it'll move throughout, you know, your dye bath. So now I've got ultraviolet. So these are my cool colors. And I'm trying very hard not to get any on my I've got my electric blue. And I'm using a different plastic spoon for each dye because you really don't want to mix the colors. And I'm kind of really putting a lot on this. Now if I had put the straw and the green, the blue together, I would have gotten a different kind of green, and it would have been an interesting green, I think, in there. So I'm gonna add this third color, and I'm gonna just sprinkle it kind of in the center here and see what happens. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, and you won't either today, because the other thing about this whole dyeing process is that it takes 24 hours about that you should let it sit. And the reason for that being is that the ice needs time to dye the fabric and melt, so that it does, all this dye goes into the cloth, and then it needs to sit and warm up a little bit. If the ice has melted and 24 hours has not passed, you can cover it with some cellophane or whatever and set it. You could go out in the sun, it'll dry faster, it's going to heat up more. Then you'll want the plastic covering over it so that the heat can help set the dye. So this is what it looks like, and now when you sit and stare at it if you want, or you can go do something else and let this do its thing. So I'm going to take this away, and then I'm going to show you that other scrunchy method that I used. Alright, so I moved that over by the window, and now I'm going to get my jar here, and I'm going to rinse out, and I'm cleaning off my hands so there's no dye when I pick up my other fabric. And guess what? I didn't get it off my gloves enough. So I've already got some blue dye on this one. So guess which color of dye I'm going to use. Let me grab Alright, I got me some paper towels. So let me go back to the blue, and I'm just going to sprinkle some blue over my fabric. And I already did that incorrectly. See, when I get flustered, I make mistakes. But it's going to work. Because I forgot to put the ice on it. And that's where the actual dye actually goes, is over the ice. So now I'm going to put just a little bit more ice there. And I've got the blue, and I'm going to go with the, let's get some violets. So I'm going to take some rose wine, and we're going to sprinkle that over the top of that one. So I'm going to do it the same way. If I made a mistake the first time, I'm going to make the same mistake again. All right. All right, so now I've squished this one out. Do not rinse your so again, the ice and my scrunched up fabric, and I'm really scrunching it in there, putting it down. And I had the rose wine, so I think I'm going to go with some yellow. But this time I'm going to put the ice on first, just to change it up a little bit. You'll see how this all comes out next week. All right. So let's get my last piece of fabric. I'm going to scrunch it down, and let me see, what do I want with, I've got the blue, I've got the violet. Well, let's just be wild. I'm going to try green. I'm not sure how this one's going to come out, but hey, we'll find out. I've got a little bit of green here. And now I'm going to, and this ice is the same ice that I was using before, but I scrunched it up so it was very crushed. You know, snow cone ice would be kind of cool. That kind of thing. All right. So I'm just going to put that in there, and now that's going to do its thing. And I moved into this room because of the tile floor, and I'm so glad I did, because I've got water and ice on the floor. This is a great thing to do outside. And that soda ash water can be left. Let me take off the mask. And the gloves. And then I want to get 2 questions. And I want to walk through a little bit more of this whole thing. All right, so basically I soaked my fabric, and this is caught on my earring. So it's probably going to just hang there. Well, nope, there we go. So I got a gallon of warm water, and I put a cup of soda ash in my gallon of water. I put all of my fabric into my bucket of soda ash water and let it sit for at least 15 minutes. All right. Then I got my tub and my strainer. You can use a cookie sheet or something. Whatever you use, do not use it for cooking again. All right. This is now your dye equipment, if you will. And I got that set up. Then I got my fabric out of my dye bath and just simply rinsed it out. All right. And I just squeezed it and got the most of the water out. Put it in my tub tray over top of either the cookie screen, or I had that that vegetable thing that I could pull apart so it would fit over that, that tub. And so once I had done that, I put that fabric in. You can scrunch it, you can pleat it, you can do whatever you want to, however much you want to dye. And I just did fat quarters, but you could do whatever size of fabric that you wanted to. I used Procyon dyes, dry. I did not mix it. And so I sprinkle, and then I covered my fabric completely in ice, sprinkled the color or colors. I would suggest highly that you don't use more than 3, because then you're going to get mud. And I sprinkled that over the top of the ice, and now it's sitting there, and it's going to sit for about 24 hours. Tomorrow morning I will clean it, I will come in and I'm going to rinse all of that out with cold water and until the water runs clear. So I'm going to rinse it out really well in cold water until the water runs clear. Then I'm going to use, and this came in the kit, some Synthropol. And I'm going to take that Synthropol and I'm going to wash that fabric once it's rinsed out and clear in hot water with Synthropol. Then let it dry, and then I can use it in my quilts and stuff. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. And I've got something that I made myself to put in there. If you want to do the scrunchie and get stuff that looks like this, that's what that scrunchie does. It just gives you a lot more movement and activity in the fabric. So then I used a flower base. I put marbles at the bottom, and then I put the fabric in, put ice on it, sprinkle it, put the next layer of fabric, the next layer of ice, sprinkled it. I was able to get 3 layers in here. Now, as that ice melts, whatever is on the top is going to sink and drain to the bottom, obviously, and it's going to dye pieces and parts of those wrinkles and scrunch as it melts down to the bottom. So I tend to put my darkest color and least amount of dye in the bottom one. And then I put another complementary color that's not going to turn to mud unless I want mud in the second layer, and the top layer is usually a light one. Now I did it a little bit differently today because well, I got flustered, and when I get flustered, then that's when mistakes happen, or I say things that I shouldn't, or I don't say anything on the line. So now you know my inner, deepest, darkest secrets here. Please use rubber gloves, and please use a mask, because you don't want to breathe those dyes in. And if your hands get stained, and I know this because I thought I could touch something without it giving a problem. And my hands, they didn't come clean. It was over a week. I had blue fingertips. So, just so you know, and I did the mistake for you. The other thing that you saw happen is I had dried off my gloves and thought they were fine with the powder. And you can see how that powder is so fine that you can't really see it. So have, some clear, another little bucket of water or something that you can put your latex glove in if you're mixing different dyes, and washing those off and drying them on something so that you're not mixing the dyes unless you don't care and it's okay to mix the dyes. And for what I was doing today, that was fun. So hopefully I've answered a lot of the questions. And what if you add salt? Mary, if you're making the liquid dye, you use non-iodized salt with it, and it'll tell you that when you order Procyon dyes. But because we were not turning it into a liquid dye that was going to color it one solid color, and I'm mixing all this up, salt was not needed. And if you do this on a hot day, would you let the dye fabric sit for 24 hours in a more shaded area? Do you put a plastic wrap over the fabric pan? Yes and yes and yes. On a hot day, I've taken it out, and I still, just because it's me, I let it sit for 24 hours. But as long as the heat has gotten to it, you probably don't need to. So if you dyed in the morning and it was a very hot day outside, by the end of the day, you could take care of it. I'm sure of that. And meant to say that she squeezed the soda ash water out of her fabric before dyeing. Yes, I did. I said rinsed, and I didn't mean that. I squeezed it out. I wrung it out. Whatever. Okay. Did I hear right? Do you rinse the squeezed soda ash soaked cloth? No, 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 no. Bethany, I'm sorry. I used the wrong verbiage. Thank you, Kristen, for answering that. Just squeeze out the water. Do not rinse out the soda ash. Does it differ if the fabric is PFD or plain white? No, it really doesn't. It's just how you treat the fabric to begin with. With the PFD, you don't need to do the whole soda ash thing necessarily with this type of dyeing. What happens with the ice and then the dye again? Yeah, Pat, I will have to tell you, once I kind of did this once, I get such interesting things. So next week, tune in to see what that jar one looks like, because I goofed, as you saw, because I was flustered. I put the dye on the fabric as opposed to the ice. So that's going to change that, and it's going to be fun to see. I'm excited. Does fabric have to be wet? Do the dyeing after soda ash bath. You really need to do, if you're going to do this dyeing, you do need to do it right after the soda ash bath, because that's what keeps the fabric, that the wet soda ash in there is going to help keep that dye in your fabric and give you a more clear and a more beautiful color for your dyeing. So, and it's going to set it better. So if you're going to do the dyeing, do it all the same. Now, with that, I will say that this soda ash, I'm going to put the lid back on the bucket. Because I have this open and I have the dye out and stuff, I'm actually going to dye some more fabric, and I can still use that soda ash water as long as I do it, within this week. I can use that soda ash water again, but after that, no. And all right, I think I've answered the questions. Wish I didn't have to wait a week to see the results. Well, Kathy, I'm sorry. I showed you some that I had done, so you would see that. But that's, I'll have it all washed and cleaned and ready to go. Do you preach the fabrics? I'm going to say you might meant bleach. I talk to my fabric, but this is not bleaching. I'm not going to do any of that. How do you dispose of the soda ash water after you're done with it? I take it outside to a drain, or I just put it down. I have one of those deep sinks, and I dispose of it that way. Hopefully that is the correct way to do it. And pre-wash. Okay, thank you, Paul. Pre-wash the fabrics. I do pre-wash if I do not have the prepared for dyeing fabric. The prepared for dyeing fabric doesn't have all those, I'm going to say, chemicals and stuff that's in fabric to keep it looking, fresh and nice. There's formaldehydes, there's other things, there's soaps and stuff in it. So to get all of that out, I do pre-wash my fabric. Then I soak it in the soda ash, and then I do my dyeing with the Procyon dyes, Procyon. And I really, if you want to get into this and you've never tried it before, this is probably the easiest introduction into fabric dyeing that you can get. And do buy the kit from the Quilt Show, because it has the instructions, it has the folding techniques, and you have pre-picked dyes that are going to work together, and it's not going to give you a lot of mud, and that's what is really good. Will next week's results be on the Quilt Show at the same day, same time? Yes, Linda. It's on my Saturday sampler, 10 a.m. Pacific time here. Is the fabric in the kit pre-washed, or do we need to do it? I can't answer. Kristen will have to answer that. But I think I would pre-wash it anyway. And it's simply, just rinsing it out and washing it with a little bit of soap. I think Sonic Fast Food Ice would be fun. Yes, it would. And so the kit, Kristen put up the link for the kit. Maybe it'll tell you in the kit what is in there. I didn't get the full kit. The fabric in the kit is not pre-washed. So do pre-wash the fabric if you bought the kit. Kathy, you just may have to try it. I think you would have a great time if you did. This is already starting to melt. You can see it in because it's hot here today. And I'm in my art room, and it is windows on all sides but the one behind me, which is the wall out to our living area. And it's got skylights, and the sun is coming in with all these windows and stuff. They gave it a fancy name and called it a solarium. And so it's warm in here. So my ice is melting pretty quickly. So I may be able to, by tonight, to get rid of all of this and do it. So, Sherry, that's interesting. I never thought of using soda ash in your laundry. But that you'll have to explain that a little bit more for me. Okay, Linda asked, where are you? I am in Northern California in the Gold Country in a town called Sonora. And we moved here a couple years ago, so we're close to our grandchildren. And that's why I live here in the hills, in the Sierra foothills in Northern California. So that's where I am. Now that's probably more information than you probably wanted. So next week I will see you again on Saturday morning, I believe. At least right now I'm going to say that. So have a wonderful week. Have a lot of fun with this. If you have any questions, my email is on the screen. Please let me know. Put it in the forum. Ask your questions. You can watch it again on YouTube. We do tape it so you can have it. Can you make your own soda ash? I have no clue. And I've never pre-washed PDF, Catherine says. Usually I don't either, but this was not. I did not have prepared for dyeing fabric. All right. You have a great week. Have a wonderful time. I will see you next Saturday.